Coming up on Tech Edge, Civil War apps and 3D. I'm Allison High.
And I'm Bill Lopez.
And this is Tech Edge. Today we're back again with Bill Lopez.
Thank you.
And today we are talking about Civil War apps.
Yes.
And you got some pretty interesting ones for us today.
Yes, exactly. You know, there's been a really interesting development just recently in historical photography, and that is that many photographs taken in the 1800s were actually taken by stereoscopic cameras. These were cameras with two lenses as far apart as the eye, and it produced two images. And then when you looked at it through a stereoscope, which we'll show you a little later, the images come together and they form a three-dimensional picture. Excellent. And so what they've been able to do is to take those separate images, combine them into just one image digitally, and then put them into books or digitize them and put them on the internet. And those are the pictures we're going to take a look at today.
Okay. So we have a couple apps and we have some books to look at. So let's go ahead and take a look.
Well, here is a new book. It was just published last year. It's called Lincoln in 3D, Amazing and Rare Stereoscopic Photographs of His Life and Times. And it's by Bob Zeller and John Richter. And it includes a pair of 3D glasses if you don't have one with you.
Now, Bill, we talk about iPad apps. Why is a book here today?
Good question. The company or the organization that is creating these 3D digitalized images is called the Center for Civil War Photography. And the Center for Civil War Photography has collected a lot of the digitized that they've done and put it into this book form.
Okay.
So in the book there's over 100 3D images. On the Center for Civil War Photography website, there's probably 50, 75. The app that we're going to show you has about 25 to 30
Excellent.
On it. So if you want to see all of them, of course
This
they want
the
you to
book.
buy the book.
Okay.
Yes. So this picture of Abraham Lincoln, the portrait here, was actually taken with a stereoscopic camera. It produced two separate images. Now what the digitizers did was to photograph each image, one with a cyan filter, one with a red filter. Then if you use your red cyan glasses on there and it merges, you see the image in 3 dimensions. So for those of you that have 3D glasses, if you're looking at Abe Lincoln, you may see a little bit of a 3-dimensional tone to it. So here's a photograph from the Civil War history. You know that the Civil War began with the South attacking and firing on Fort Sumter. Well, this is Fort Sumter. And you can see by this stereographic picture it in the background, and then you have the subjects in the foreground here. And because there's a lot more depth of field, you get a greater 3-dimensional feel to it. So what it does, the difference between the two, is that it really gives you an interesting perspective as how big the walls were on Fort Sumter and how long it must have taken to be able to break those walls down. Here's a photograph of some slaves standing in front of the rows of slave houses that they lived in. It was taken with a 3D camera as well. So you really get a feel for how big or how small the houses were. And so you get a pretty good idea of what the shacks were made out of and how far they were from each other through the 3 dimensions. And finally, a really interesting picture taken in a hospital for the wounded soldiers. This is a northern hospital, but you really get a sense of that these were just huge halls and just filled with wounded soldiers. You can see the potbelly stove in the center of it and how it kept warm. Well, now we're going to take a look at the companion app to the Lincoln book that we just saw. But your opening page, it's called History 3D, the Civil War, and it'll give you your directions. Over on the left are all of the different photographs that are available, and so we'll take a look at one of them. We'll take a look at the stone church. I really like this one because it's really a neat picture. I would call it the Sentinel. And if you have your 3D glasses, put them on, because it's amazing. You'll see the soldier standing just almost right up on top of you in the camera, and then you see the old church in the background. You also see some soldiers getting ready to load a cannon. It almost looks lonely, like the lonely sentinel. And the kids will get to see, again, the perspective, and you're really up on top of a hill, but in black and white, and there is a button that you can push, so I will change it back to the black and white, and you just don't get that same perspective that he's really up on top of a hill. So I'll put it back there.
Now, something else I was noticing down here, it says history. Is this going to give us a little bit?
Right, so if you choose the history, then you'll get the caption,
just like
and
the
it'll
book.
explain exactly what was in the book. And this is the Battle of Bull Run in 1861, and so it explains about the battle and what part this church played in it. So it's really a nice feature there. We can also go up to the information page, and it'll give you more information and the website. And here's a great picture of Abe Lincoln. And so here he is having a meeting with General McClellan in a tent out in the field there. We can get the history of it. It says these two men don't look pleased. It's because they probably weren't. The war wasn't going well at this time, and so Abraham Lincoln went into the field to tell his generals, you know, we've got to turn this thing around. And so it gives a nice picture of Abe Lincoln. This app is called the Civil War of Visual History, and again, this is set up a little bit differently. You'll notice that you have a map of the United States, the eastern part where different wars were, and you can click on the different icons there to see what comes up. But there's an awful lot here. So what they give you is different periods during the war. So the first one is the conflict begins, and we can click on that, and it gives you some information about how the Civil War started on there. This is the third chapter that I have clicked, and it calls the front lines. And you'll notice that the number of pictures has reduced, because now we're looking at just specifically different battles and different front lines. So we can pick on a photograph there, and now it'll give you the photograph, and it also gives you the information about it. So this is Union troops at Fair Oaks, prepare for battle in that.
Something that's nice down here is that you can share it.
Right.
And if you want to save this picture, you can mark it as a favorite. So it's saved for you,
Right.
which is great.
You can have all those favorites and come up. Also, it gives you some related photographs to this particular battle. This is the Peninsular Campaign, so there would be other items as well.
And then along each page, I've seen this timeline. What is this timeline?
Right, so the timeline you can go through, and the pages are also set up
Wow, the
by
pictures
time
are
period.
time.
Yes. So if you're looking 1863 on there, and now you've got a picture of the Confederate artillery.
That's great.
Loading up their artillery in 1863. So that's nice. So you've got it by location, you've got it by time period, you've got it by subject.
That's great. So today we talked about some great Civil War apps. We got to use our 3D glasses, we had a great book, and as always, we appreciate you being here. You've shared so much with us and the viewers.
Thank you.
And we will see you next time on Tech Edge.